I'm recording now.
All right, next item on the agenda is the nomination to fill the position on the Fort Lincoln Association Board of Directors, formerly filled by James Peterson. And Mr. Peterson has submitted his resignation, as I think most members of the board know. Mr. Peterson is a co-pilot on Air Force 2, which flies the Vice President of the United States around the world. And with this new promotion, we are able to be a full-time representative in New York for the Dakota Crossing. Maybe going to Asia and very part of Europe, etc. for the next remaining term of President Obama. Robert Johnson has been designated by the Homeowners Association of the Dakota Crossing as their nominee to be nominated for the position to replace Mr. Peterson. And I had an opportunity to sit down with Mr. Johnson and go over the two basic eligibility requirements for membership on the board provided for in the Civic bylaw. One, you have to be a member. Second, Mr. Peterson. First, you have to be a member of the housing cluster in question, and Mr. Johnson is a resident and owner at the Dakota Crossing. And two, you have to be committed to the mission of the Fort Lincoln Civic Association, and principally, of course, in the enforcement of the Fort Lincoln the land disposition agreement that developed with Fort Lincoln, Utah. And he's on board with that as well. Beyond that, we have discussed about a number of things that I anticipated with questions because in the past there have been questions that board members have told us to nominees. And so he's going to have an opening statement, which I think you're going to find he anticipated some of the questions that board members have asked about those nominees in the past. And then, including his statement, you could then feel free to ask any questions you have prior to making a motion, one way or the other, and vote on this nomination. John.
Okay. Again, my name is Robert Johnson. I go by Rod Johnson. I am a native of Washingtonian. I currently reside in Dakota Crossing, and I call it the original Dakota Crossing, not to be confused with the villages. I live on 2633 Patricia Roberts Harris Place. I've been a resident there now for 6.5 years. I was educated at the Master High School. I went to the University of Maryland, got my master's degree in finance. I've been in commercial banking for the last 30 years. I've served on nonprofit organizations for the last 30 years. I actually served on the Hunting Ridge Condominium Club Association as both a board member and a treasurer for 9 years in Greenbelt, Maryland. One of the things that helps me stay on track is that I'm a very organized, structured, and disciplined person. Most of the boards that I've served on over the last 30 years, my average tenure on those boards is actually 5 years. And I've served actually treasurer of the board, chairman of the board, secretary of the board. So I've served in all different capacities on the board, and I bring that expertise to the Fort Lincoln Civic Association. Last night I was asked to actually serve on the Dakota Crossing Homeowners Association to fill the treasurer's position there. There's much work to be done there, quite frankly. So I hope that I do get, if you will, voted on by my fellow homeowners living there in the original Dakota Crossing. And if that's the case, I will serve as the liaison between the Fort Lincoln Civic Association and the Dakota Crossing Homeowners Association. Because I think that's important, and since we're all in this together, I think we should have someone represent sitting here, both organizations. And of course, I'm committed to the mission of the Fort Lincoln Civic Association. What's important to me at this point in time is that we actually realize the original intent of Fort Lincoln. And in my opinion, having grown up in this area, one of the things I thought was that Fort Lincoln was supposed talked about a sustainable and walkable neighborhood. I always look at Fort Lincoln as a neighborhood that's what I call a city within a city. And to me, that was the original purpose and design of Fort Lincoln. Now, obviously, we've seen all the townhouses go up, the code crossings, the villages of the code crossings. What's more pressing for me at this point is the development, the commercial development, right down the street there, 31st and Fort Lincoln, and then whatever's going to happen with the land on New York Avenue there, Montana and New York Avenue, what's going to happen with that. I just read an article that the owners, who are three brothers of that property, now have placed that property up for sale. And so hopefully, we'll get a big developer that will want to actually develop that property, since Walmart has, as the owners have said, Walmart's contract has expired. Because I think we all were looking forward to that Walmart going there, right? Yeah. So, anyway, economic development for the Fort Lincoln area is very important to me. I have a good relationship with David Grosso, who was a Ward 5 councilman. He was in my leadership Greater Washington class. And so I'm constantly in contact with him about issues in Ward 5. So I'm here to serve. Any questions?
One critical thing I forgot to mention. I hope everybody has a copy of Mrs. Johnson's resume. Everybody has a copy of Mrs. Everybody on the board has a copy of Mrs. Johnson's resume.
Any questions?
Mr. Johnson, you said you're going to be committed to the Fort Lincoln Civic Association, not the other association that you spoke of.
Well, here's the good thing, right? I live right here. So it's not going to be that hard to be able to attend the meetings. If these meetings are on Thursday, the HOA meetings are on Wednesday. Right? So whatever's happened there in that meeting, I can bring here on Thursday evening. And I think that's the beauty of being able to serve on both boards.
We should point out that those Davies, they can serve on both boards for continue.
You said you lived in Fort Lincoln for 6 years?
Yes, with Patricia Roberts Harris.
I see you're a member of a lot of boards. You're very active in a lot of activities.
Well, I currently serve on the board for the Center for Nonprofit, and then I also serve on the board, and I'm the secretary of that board. And then I serve on the board of the Greater Washington Society of CPA. And I'm the only non-CPA that actually serves on that board.
Yes, and I heard you say that you work for a bank?
Yes.
So that means you can come on your fundraising?
Wells Fargo, I think last year gave, what did we give, $1,500? Just $1,000? I think to the Fort Lincoln home tour.
Yeah. Oh, you was a part of that?
And actually, I knew about it because I knew that manager at that particular branch, but it had to be approved out of my office out in Tyson Point. So I was aware that was being done.
Yeah, and I heard you say you would be committed to working with Fort Lincoln Civic Association. I'm glad to hear that. And another thing, you're seasoned. So that means, you'll be around for a while, and you'll be in the community, and you'll be within the community with the Civic Association.
I have a vested interest.
Honey?
I said I have a vested interest.
Oh, good. We want people like that.
And particularly for economic development. I can't state that enough. Particularly for economic development in Ward 5. Because that's important, right? For all our property values to go up.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Taxes go down.
And the Walmart that we were supposed to, was thinking about that's going to be on New York Avenue?
It's supposed to be on New York Avenue. That's not happening anymore.
Walmart not coming because of the sale?
They're not coming because their contract with the developer lapsed. And so as of today, there hasn't been any negotiation for Walmart, between Walmart and the owner of the land to actually have a site developed for Walmart. As of today.
And how were you recruited to become a member of the board?
Actually, an email came out, was it from you, Roy? An email came out, and I decided to answer the call. Now, I will say I'm willing to serve on the finance committee. I'm not a fundraiser, but I am very good with analyzing financial statements, doing what we call forensic accounting. Okay. That's really what I do best, the forensic accounting.
Like auditing?
So, yeah, that's a part of it. That's part of it. That's actually what I'm very good at. So whether or not I need that expertise, I don't know, but I'm good at analyzing financial statements, uncovering errors, preventing fraud from organizations. In fact, if you've been reading the Washington Post over the past couple of months, the Washington Post has been talking about fraud going on in nonprofits. And typically the fraud is happening from within the organization, not outside of the organization. So that's actually one of the expertise that I have.
So, if you are unable to make a monthly meeting, will you have any problem finding someone to fill in for you?
Yeah, that's easy. Actually, I thought you were going to be here this evening. It's my wife. She's a sixth grade math teacher in Montgomery County. The grades are due, so she's busy inputting the grades into the system so that the parents can pull them up over the weekend. But she and I have already discussed it, and she's on board if I can't make the meeting. That's going to be very rare. Because I started out by saying I'm organized, structured, and disciplined. So you should see my calendar. I mean, it's everything I do is structured. As my wife would say, it's one of hers. But I am very structured. And actually, looking at all the organizations that I was a part of, I had to be very structured. And for my average tenure being 5 years serving on those boards in a leadership capacity, you don't have a choice but to be structured and organized and disciplined.
Yeah, I see where you're a personal trainer. Does that mean a fitness trainer?
Personal fitness trainer. I've been certified, I guess, now for the past 23 years.
Okay, is that at bars or?
At the Regional Country Club up in Potomac, Maryland. I still have some clients there. And at the University Club downtown in D.C. on 16th Street between L and M.
So if anybody wants to come visit so they can join the club?
There's senior discount.
Is there a senior discount? There's actually going to happen next year. One of my specialties, since I'm a baby boomer, in fact approaching 60, I'm going to get the specialization in geriatric training. But that's I get that at the end of this year. I will say that there's a price break for senior citizens. The normal charge is $100 an hour at this point for most individuals. But clubs are now charging $50 an hour for what they call the geriatric population, which is 55 years old and older.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Johnson?
if you want to, I will offer, is my phone number? Okay. I mean, feel free to call me. If you really want to know what's going on in DC proper, in terms of economic development, just feel free to call me if you really want to know. It's actually a part of my job to know about every major development that's going on in Washington, D.C. Why is that? Because it's been playing a hand in lending to those developers and entrepreneurs to make things happen in the city. So it's my business to know.
You have a number, Bob?
It's on his resume and it's on the board chart.
I just have one more question for you. How much do you know about the Lincoln Civic Association and the bylaws? Have you had a chance to go over those?
Now, I haven't had a chance to go over the bylaws. To be frank with you, I can't see them being any different than most other nonprofit organizations. But I will read them, but I don't see there being any major differences from them.
Yeah, the YouTube video on it.
Yeah, okay.
We actually did a training on the bylaws right after the last election. So the June 2013 bylaws, June 23rd, June 2013, Fort Lincoln Civic Association board meeting. There's a training on our bylaws. And certain things are required for the DC Code. Every nonprofit organization in the District of Columbia has certain requirements. But some things are unique to our unique situation in Fort Lincoln. And so that's addressed in our bylaws. Our bylaws, by the way, are on our website in their entirety. But we actually had a training on it. Members of the board each took one of the articles of the bylaws and made a presentation on that particular article, took questions from people, other board members, because usually after the new election, it's a large turnover in the number of people. And this is an effort, especially for ladies, to make sure they understand their obligation as members of the board and also their rights as members of the board.
I like the website. I'm pretty impressed with the website.
So,
The telephone is not in there. The telephone is not in there. And
It's on his resume.
this is the resume.
Top right hand corner.
okay, I think I have one more question.
Sure.
We have our 501c3, so maybe you can kind of one way that we can do, one way that we can do that doesn't violate the 501c3 statute. So we'll do something.
Okay. As long as we're not doing anything outside of the mission, then we should be okay. Yeah, we should. Like developing real estate, right? That's not what we do. So if we're trying to raise money to do that, that's the outside the scope. Right? But for the base sale or car wash or whatever it is that we want to do for fundraising, that's within the 501c3.
If we were to need some money, big money, say we could get a grant to substantiate whatever it is we would need.
It depends on the use of the grant, right? What's the real purpose of the grant? Right? Yeah. Like up on Rhode Island Avenue, right? They tapped in and got a grant for fixing the facade, for improving the facade for the stores on Rhode Island Avenue, right? That was a specific purpose. Like I was had to have a specific purpose for whatever that grant was used.
You should remember that also in the context of, in September of each year, the board adopts a budget. It lists all the expected expenses for the coming 10 months, all the expected income from grants, income from one time. In September, 4 months ago, the board adopted that budget. That budget includes a grant that we hope to get from the AMC 5C to support the Puerto Rican home tour. So, Marcella Tolson, who's the chairperson of the Puerto Rican home tour, will be applying to the AMC 5C for a grant. In the past, AMC 5C has provided a grant up to $3,800 for Bloomingdale Civic Association to put on its home tour. So there's already a precedent for their supporting home tours held by Civic Association. That's right in our budget. We kind of said $1,000 at least, and we hope, obviously, to get as much as they did to support the underwriters. But we already have a budget for this year, income stream, expected expenses, all the way through June. And in June, we do it again over the summer for the coming year.
Now, what about a meeting place? Who's going to be our staff meeting place?
We didn't know.
The new business will be full.
Is this going to be our regular meeting place?
Yeah.
Eight o'clock,
When they come in.
We have one other question that is germane to his nomination, and that is, on your resume, it says that you are a graduate of the Leadership Greater Washington class of 2011. For those who are not familiar with Leadership Greater Washington at all, much less the class of 2011, please explain what that involves.
All right, so that's supposedly it's a prestigious organization where they bring together leaders from D.C., Maryland, and Virginia to go over issues that cover the tri-state area. So you have people from the nonprofit world, from D.C. government, from the federal government, from private industry that are actually selected into these classes on an annual basis. So, for example, Mayor Anthony Williams actually hatched his idea to run for mayor inside the Leadership Greater Washington class. Adrian Finney's been a part of Leadership Greater Washington. The leaders of TEPCO have been a part of Leadership Greater Washington. You have developers that are a part of it, bankers, but they all come together and they work on issues that affect D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. So they look at transportation. We look at transportation, like, for example, the City Center project that's going on now in the center part of D.C. where the old convention center is. That was a project that we looked at, and we took it to the Board of Trade and said it's something that should be advocated for, and obviously you see what you see now with the development of Center City. We look at healthcare issues, we look at public safety issues, transportation. So it's really a group of leaders from D.C., Maryland, and Virginia that come together to look at issues that affect the entire region. And we weigh in on that, and it goes to the Board of Trade, and the Board of Trade serves as an advocate for those issues.
So some of the people you rubbed elbows with at the conference, you mentioned Mr. Grasso.
Yes, David Grasso was a part of my class. He now represents Ward 5 as a council member. At large. Yes, at large. Yes, he does. Actually, the superintendent